Hello, everyone. We're so excited for Life on Purpose Live. We have one of my most favorite people, Andy Andrews, is with us. He has an incredible story, a life story, but he's also got great advice and tips on how to be so successful with your own life story. So, we're going to jump in today with one of my favorites. And Andy Andrews, welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I am so good and I'm so glad to see you. And I have to say that, one of my favorite books, The Traveler's Gift, um, it is a New York Times bestseller. You've got lots of best-selling books, but that one got rejected 51 times, if I'm correct. So that
Yeah,
is that
51 publishers turned that one down.
that's the keep on going any authors out there. So I got to give a shout out to my friends Ray and Cindy Wiley, who we talk about your work all the time, and so they're drinking coffee and joining us. So we're going to invade Wisdom Harbor one day and come on up in there and say hello to you in
Awesome.
person, and we're so
Awesome.
excited.
Please do.
So let's talk about the seven principles. I mean, I think all the things that we could talk about, all the things that you've accomplished, the many things that you have to say, but it really comes back to how you make decisions with life, in life, and with life. And I want to kind of navigate through your story because your story is incredible. And your story comes from a place of wonderful experience and some overcoming some tough hurdles. So you don't tell people just to go out and make it a great day. You tell people you've had those days where you had to dig deep and go out and make it a great day. So that's the best part about the way you present everything. So this is on my desk. It came with my book. So, and I know you've got so many things since then, but let's talk about the buck stops here. Is life choice or chance?
Well, I have determined that it is choice. That was a big question to me back when my parents died and I was living on the beach. Is life just a lottery ticket or is there something you can do? And if there is something you do, what is it and how long does it take? And I identified these seven things, but that's this first one is responsibility. The life is a choice, and responsibility is it's defined by most people at its extreme edges. You
Hmm.
got one group going until people accept responsibility, they'll never be able to, and the others, other side saying, but they don't. They had a poor parents. If you had parents like that, and so it's two distinct extremes. But responsibility doesn't have anything to do with blaming people about where they are
Hmm.
or making them feel bad or where they're come from. Responsibility has to do with hope and control. And who among us doesn't want to have hope for a greater future we can control? But if you blame your mother, your parents, if you blame your neighbors, the weather, the economy, the coronavirus, the president, there's
Right.
not a lot of hope there because there's no control. I mean, if our life really is in the place that it is because of the president of the United States, what are you going to do about the president today?
Right. Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
but if we can look in the mirror and we can say, okay, I've had some crazy things happen to me and I couldn't change any of them. I had some tragedies happen and I couldn't change any of them. But I have responded in a certain way to
Hmm.
these crazy things that have led my life right down a path to a place that I don't like. If you can understand that you can make choices that will lead you to a place that you don't like, that's good news because doesn't it just make logical sense? You could also make choices that would lead you to a place you do like.
Hmm. Right. And I've interviewed people for a long time, and you've interviewed people for a long time. You've not had anybody that's come across and said, "Well, I just had it easy, so no problem here." Everybody's had hurdles some many hurdles to overcome. And I've heard it
Right.
said the happiest people are the ones that have overcome the most. Would you say that is probably the case?
Yeah, and I think it's because those are the people who are the most peaceful, the most comfortable, and they're not afraid because they know that they have the ability to ride above anything that happens.
Hmm. It's so true. Um, that's good. And we're going to talk a little bit more about your story. So I will seek wisdom. So we have a world that is not seeking wisdom. And therefore there's a lot of the bad decisions people are making. How do you tell people that really want to set themselves up in a better life? How do you really seek wisdom when it seems like it's hard to find? I know the biblical wisdom is a key to our foundation, but people don't know what to think, so they're buying a lot of lies.
Yeah, wisdom is the first thing you have to do is differentiate between what people think wisdom is and what it isn't. Wisdom is not knowledge. Wisdom is not information. We live in a society that is we have more information than we've ever had in our lives, but
Hmm.
there are still some crazy decisions being made. And so, the best illustration of between wisdom and knowledge would be if you had, you know, all of us know 12-year-old kids, and there's not a 12-year-old that we know that doesn't have the mental and physical ability to learn how to drive a car. I mean, a 12-year-old could learn how to drive a car. But if you teach one to drive a car, you're still not going to throw them the keys and say, have a great weekend, because they don't have the wisdom to apply that knowledge in a consistent manner and in the proper context. And so there's a difference in wisdom and knowledge. And wisdom comes from observing, from being quiet and watching and reading and thinking.
Yeah. And studying. And you're such a great history buff. I mean, I learned about history from reading The Traveler's Gift because I like to say the school I went to didn't teach much, but you bring wisdom from the ages in and combine it with wisdom of today, and somehow you make those complement each other so well, and that is such uh, a wise thing to do. But it's also it's just so comforting to see how you weave all of life together and then
Thank you.
come out with a great solution. So how about I am a person of action? um I'm all about living a life on purpose, and you talk so much about this that this is my hot topic of the day. There is a lot of David Ponders out there in the world who life didn't end up where they thought it was going to be, and they're defeated, they're not quite sure how to take the next step, but yet we've still got to be a person of action and make decisions. So how do you encourage someone that's looking at their life going, not what I thought it was going to be, but let me go to where I think it can be.
Yeah, you got to make the realization and make that connection first that nothing happens unless something happens. And so until you act, nothing nothing starts moving, right? Intention doesn't do it. You can have the greatest of intentions, but it's like um, Jones told me one time, like five seagulls sitting on a board, and two of them decide to fly away. How many are left? Well, the answer is five. They only decided to fly away. They didn't actually do it.
Ah,
And so there is an action part of this that we need to remember that yes, God feeds the birds, but he doesn't throw the worms in their nest. Yeah, that there is an action quotient. Action fires our adrenaline. Action gets it rolling downhill. Action, people will follow you, get caught up in your wake, and And so action is a critical course. And yet it's the first thing. And it's logically we know that, but it seems to be the first thing we deny when we get in a tough situation. We tend to lay down and eat ice cream on the couch and watch a reality show
Yeah.
and just let time pass. And so
Zone out. Hmm.
yeah, so there is the opportunity to do something. You can't do everything right now, but you can do something right now. Time to
Yes.
act.
Yeah. And what do you say to those who struggle with God's will? You said God feeds the bird, but he doesn't throw the worms in the nest. People
Yeah.
struggle with God's plan, God's purpose, but you can't just sit back and wait on the big telegram to come in the mail. You got to go do something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had people say to me sometimes, I'm just waiting on God. And I've done that, but every time I've done that, I have really come to the conclusion that God's waiting on me. It's like God's like, "Hey, I would love to bless you, but you got to give me something to bless."
Yeah.
God's not a big David Copperfield in the sky,
Hmm.
right? He will set our pathways, and he'll move things that are wrong to make them right. But come on, give me something to bless.
Yeah.
Do something.
But you do believe God has a purpose for everyone, and therefore,
Absolutely.
I mean, sometimes that's progress, sometimes it's not perfection, but progress means we step forward, not backwards, and we're always, we're going forwards or backwards, but we got to be achieving
Right.
something.
Right.
Yes, so purpose, that's a big thing. So, how about I have a decided heart? So many people's hearts are on the table right now. People don't know what to think about what's happening in the world. I mean, what do we do about COVID? What do we do about elections? I mean, you talked about that a little bit before. And, I like to say, in order to know who you are, you got to really love who you're not. So you can be happy with all the people you're not as you look at all of them go by on social media. But how do you take yourself in this world where everybody's trying to do everything and have a decided heart, a commitment to a plan towards purpose every day?
Well, you got to remember that an undecided heart is responsible for more failures, more
Wow.
disintegration of relationships, of plans. Uh, More failures are due to an undecided heart than for any other reason. And you know what this is? An undecided heart is something where you've got something that you're making a decision on, and you think about it, and you research it, and you analyze it, and you talk to your friends about it, and then you make the decision. As soon as you make the decision, you talk to your friends about whether you should have made the decision and
Yep.
whether you should have waited a little bit, and talk to your friends about what your family says about that, and then you take the decision back, and then you start to research that, and life becomes this ongoing state of of research, this
Hmm.
ongoing state of um, just finding out. And there is a purpose for research, and the purpose of it is to make a decision. It's not to continue to research, because if if you well, let's put it this way: you were not created with the ability to get enough information to make correct decisions every time,
Hmm.
because if you'd have to be psychic. Okay. And the psychic network went out of business. You thought they just seen that coming. All right. But the, they but you were created with the ability to gather enough information to make a decision and then go about the business of making that decision right.
Hmm.
Think about it as driving from one place to another. I mean, when you get in the car, you don't just put the car into gear and sit back and read a paperback. Uh, and if you decide to go from one place to another, you have a pretty good idea of how you're going to get there. But sometimes you need a map, and even with a map, or even if you don't need a map, sometimes there's a detour, and sometimes there's the roads are blocked, and so if the roads are blocked, we don't stop and go, well, I can't believe this has happened. Nobody told me it was going to be like this. I'm never going anywhere again. I mean, it would be crazy, but people do it with their businesses and do it with their, parts of their lives. It's just, you make your decided heart is to your destination. And you have to be flexible about how you're getting there.
And sometimes a decided heart means I've got a book in me and I'm going to get turned down 51 times, but
Mhm.
that decided heart did not give up. How did
That's
you
right.
keep, I mean, how did you just, all right, 50, 51, I'm going to do 52. I mean, how did you find that in you? Most people would have given up.
Well, wait, you need to wait till the seventh decision to ask me that one.
I will, because we're going to get to that living under the bridge. So,
Yeah.
and here's a good one, and this especially for Christians, we're the light of the world, we're in the salt of the earth. I have decided to be happy. That doesn't mean everything's got to go my way. That doesn't mean, life has to go according to plan. And you're great at this. I mean, you're so motivational, you're so positive, and you've overcome so much. But why are so many people just so quick to just, you know, give in to, oh my gosh, everything's terrible, I'm just going to go home and hide under a rock?
It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
And if you ask people what perspective is, most people would say, well, it's how you see something. It's
Hmm.
how do you see the glass half full, or do you see it half empty? And and that's only true. It's not the truth, because it can be how you see something, but more importantly, it's how you choose to see it. Because when you're talking about whether the glass is half empty or half full, the glass is what it is. It's not half empty or half full. It just is. Now, you choose your perspective on that. And if you choose to see this glass as half empty, if you see a situation and you choose a half empty perspective, and just think about half empty perspective people. I mean, we don't really want to hire them. We don't put them in positions of leadership. You don't really want to be around a bunch of glass half empty friends. And so when somebody chooses to see a situation, this is the worst thing that could have ever happened, well, they're choosing that perspective. And because they choose that perspective, this is the worst thing that could have happened. It's glass half empty. They sit down, they they think about it. It's the worst thing that could ever happen. They don't do anything. They're stuck, and it becomes true. It really was the worst thing that could have ever happened. On the
Hmm.
other hand, if you choose, this is the best thing that could have ever happened, and I mean, you're looking at the same glass.
Hmm.
Okay, you're choosing, this is the best thing that could have happened. A glass half full person. Well, a glass half full person is, those are the people who get the opportunities. Those are the people we want to hire. Those are people we want to promote. Those are the people we want our children to marry. Those are the people we know that our children will be happy with the rest of our lives. And so, if you choose to see a situation, well, this could be the best thing that ever happened. Okay, well, then you sit there with ideas forming in your mind and how you could change, and wow, how it's just good to know that that didn't work. And then uh, you come upon the thing that you realize, wow, that really was the best thing that could have ever happened.
Yeah.
But It was your perspective that chose it. So you can choose to be happy because you can choose to be grateful. You can have a
There you
grateful
go.
perspective
Mhm.
or an ungrateful perspective. You can say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're having to wear masks. I can't believe, everybody's coronavirus." Well, you know, we're wearing masks in America. How'd you like to be wearing masks in Africa?
Yeah.
How'd you like to be wearing masks in Haiti with no air conditioning and no plumbing?
Mhm.
I mean, anytime we get to thinking that anytime that you can't remember that your family has a roof over their head today, and
Right.
anytime you can't remember that your family has enough to eat today, you got to remember there's a couple of billion people on the planet who will go to bed tonight without either.
Right. It's a very good point. And so in choosing to look at things from the little things mean a lot perspective, how important or how easy is it for someone who has a poor perspective to change that? I mean, how do you start saying, okay, I'm going to start choosing to look at things differently, noticing the things I can be thankful for? How does one make that mental shift and become a cup half full person?
Well, it's a decision,
Hmm.
and I think that you have to lock in with the logic at first, and
Hmm.
when you understand that, okay, I can see that that level of water, it just is what it is. And so I can choose to look at this part of it and concentrate on what I don't have, or I can look at this part of it and concentrate on what I do have. When you look at the part you don't have, what can you do with that? Nothing, because you don't have anything.
Right.
Quit looking at it. Decide to quit looking at it.
Yeah.
Look at the part you do have. It's like hope. Hope is hope is a constant if you're breathing. I mean, if you're breathing, I mean, you can be in the worst time of your life. And number one thing you got to realize is that everybody has one. Everybody has a worst time in their life.
Yep.
I mean, from birth to death, every single life,
Yep.
everybody has one.
Hmm.
And so if you're breathing, you're still here. If you're still here, that means you haven't accomplished what you're put here to accomplish. If you haven't accomplished what you're put here to accomplish, that means the most important part of your life is still ahead of you. That your purpose hasn't been fulfilled. If your purpose hasn't been fulfilled, that means that most important part, there is more. There's definitely more. There's more children to help. There's more laughter to enjoy. There's more success to earn. There's more people to teach. There is more just by virtue of the fact that you're still here.
That's so true. So changing that perspective comes with that mindset shift. It's just a constant being aware of that, which goes into um having a forgiving spirit. I mean, we
Right.
we have a very angry world out there, and we have to predetermine our attitudes when we walk out the door every day because we know what we're walking into. I mean, we have so much division. I mean, we have so much political division. It's almost like it's just planted in us every day. But yet we're called to have a forgiving spirit and to go out into that world and be the light and be the salt.
Right.
So, how do we let go of all of that? I mean, we're put in this world for this time. So we're called to it. So therefore we're equipped to go out into it. But what do you say to people that are harboring bitterness? And you talked about this earlier. You can't blame your mama. I mean, all mamas are imperfect. I mean, you can't blame, you know, coronavirus, the president. But people are, and people are getting mad, and people don't realize the power they've got to let go of that and to free themselves of that and to be forgiving and go out into the world and carry something greatness, as you like to talk about it.
Yeah, I talked to a young person recently about the vaccine. And I said, "So what are you thinking?" And he said, "Well, I just don't like the idea that somebody's telling me what to do. I just, they can't tell me what I have to do." And I said, "Well, that's absolutely right." I said, "Now, I don't know if that's a hill you want to die on because they don't even know who you are.
Mhm.
I mean, you're acting like I'm going to show them. They don't know who you are. They don't care." And so, when we look at the anger and bitterness that we carry around, there are some commandments that are lacking that we kind of add to the mix. I mean, there is there is nowhere, not an expert, nowhere in the Bible does it say for one person to forgive another person that that person has to deserve it. There's no place that says for one person to forgive another person. Now, I'm not talking about a spiritual touchstone. I'm talking about person to person. And
Mhm.
when there is no place that says for one person to forgive another person that this person has to ask for it. There is no place that even says for this person to forgive this person that this person has to even be aware that it's happening. And so to look at somebody who has offended us and realize they don't have to deserve it, they don't have to ask for it, they don't even have to be aware that it's happening. Why would I forgive them? Well, because it's eating you up.
Mhm.
It's like, you know, being weighted down with bitterness and unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting them to die.
Exactly. I've heard that
And
before.
and so to understand that forgiveness isn't, when you remember when the guy asked Jesus, "Master, how many times should we forgive? 7 times,
Mhm.
70 times?" And Jesus said, "No, 7 times 70." And I remember when I was a kid thinking, "Really? Somebody's gonna do something and I'm supposed to forgive them 490 times?" But I think that Jesus knew me a lot better than I knew myself, because that's not what he meant. What he meant was that you're going to find yourself taking it back. Forgiveness is a decision, not a
Mhm.
feeling.
Right.
Okay, it's not an emotion. We treat it like an emotion, which is why it drags us around like a dog on a leash. But forgiveness is a decision, and I can decide to forgive. Now, granted, a day later, I may be driving along and clenching the steering wheel and realize that I'm just thinking about that guy and what he did. And I go, "Oh, wait, man, I need to forgive again. I've taken back that thing.
Right.
So I need to
Mhm.
forgive and and I may have to do it 490 times. But when you make a decision, the psychologists tell us that our emotions follow our decisions,
Mhm.
not the other way around. So you make good decisions, and your emotions will eventually follow those decisions. So and when and sometimes people say, "Well, what? They're just going to get away with it?" No, there's a big difference in trust and forgiveness. When you forgive somebody, like if somebody steals from you, do you forgive them? Sure. Do you continue to do business with them? Probably not. If somebody lies to you, do you forgive them? Yes. Do you continue to believe everything they say? No. But
No.
forgiveness and trust are two different things. And it turns out this type of forgiveness is more about us than it is about them. And this is why people are so blown away when they see like somebody's family member has been injured or killed, and another family member will forgive the perpetrator. And people go, how could you do that? Well, I know it must be hard, but I look at it and I go, how could you not? Because how could you live the rest of your time on earth with that kind of anger and grief? I don't know that I could live through it.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, we can't do anything about it
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
And,
Yet it takes a lot of it takes a lot of energy to be angry and stressed
yeah.
out all the time. I mean, that'll
And
wear
in
you out
most
more
cases,
than anything.
most of the things that we're angry and bent out of shape about, these people are laying across town, sleeping peacefully, unaware that we're even been out of shape. And so it's ruining our lives, not theirs.
That's so true. So let's talk about persistence. I will persist without exception. See, without exception. So, you have such a story. I mean, you lost both your parents, and you said you made a bad situation worse. You made poor decisions and lived under a bridge, went homeless for a while. And then you went to the library and you started reading about people that have done great things. So you have persisted. You have walked in your own mess. I mean, you've done a lot of things people really, really struggle with. And now you're a best-selling author. You're one of the most influential voices of our time, the Mark Twain of today. And you've got some great titles for you because of what you've walked through, but also because you chose to persist. So what happened when you decided, okay, I'm gonna go to the library. I got to do something different. I mean, that's a moment.
Well, there was a time that I saw that common denominator in the lives of all these great people, these biographies I had read. And I realized that the only time there's no clock on this game,
Hmm.
that you call success. I mean, there's a clock on your life, but there's no clock on the game of becoming. And and the only people who fail at that are the people who quit, because who's to say when the game is over? And so I realized, that persisting would only get you so far, because society allows people to persist for a little time, and then society decides that that's enough persistence. Now you can quit because you tried. But if you live with the principle, I will persist without exception, that means you have to find a way where there is no way. And so when you hit that wall and you realize, man, there's no way, and other people around you say, there's no way, well, you have to find a way where there is no way. So what does that look like? Well, you I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. It's not money, it's not time, it's not leadership. I mean, anytime you're facing this kind of stuff, you're not lacking money, you're not lacking time, you're not lacking leadership. You're only lacking an idea, one idea, one idea. to get you up and moving. And you know, somebody said, "Well, I don't know what to do." I know you don't know what to do. But if you did know what to do, what would you do right
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
to get you moving, to get you going? And so, you know, it's like those 51 rejection letters from the traveler's gift. You know, there's 51 publishers. I mean, I had not written a novel before, and there's 51 publishers telling me what I had written was not worth putting on paper. And they have a lot more credibility than I do. And yet, as it turns out, you know, it's sold well over 1 million copies in America. It sold millions around the world. I mean, they weren't just wrong, they were really, really wrong.
Hmm.
And so I shrug that off and I look at that as a metaphor for the rest of my life. And I look at that as a metaphor for the rest of your life. I say, you know, what is it that you're tempted to quit? What is it that you're believing somebody else's opinions about your worth and your work? You know, as that book was getting turned down over and over again, I just went and I looked up, you know, how many times other books. And so it turns out Gone with the Wind had been turned down by 32 publishers. I'm thinking, okay, if Gone with the Wind had been turned down by 32 publishers, this one should probably be turned down by 300, you know? Um, but they told Dr. Seuss that, you know, these rhymes don't have anything to do with children. They're too silly and children would not find them engaging. And he was turned down. Rudyard Kipling was told, you don't have a command of the English language. And so these things you have to develop a, a, a bulletproof exterior where you just continue to smile and
Yeah.
nod and go to the next person, you know, because not everybody likes liver. Not everybody likes sushi. Not everybody likes spinach. Okay. Now, that book, The Traveler's Gift, it may not be liver, it may not be spinach, it may not be sushi, it may be all three, but somebody likes it.
It's a powerful
And
book.
yeah,
It's
so
a very powerful book, as all of yours are. So you don't just tell people to persist. I mean, you lived persisting, not only from coming out from under a bridge, but I mean, you overcame so many obstacles and look at where you are today. So you
right.
are the poster child for the seven decisions because you are a result of them. And
Yeah,
that's,
people ask, you know, they say, "Do you really believe anybody can succeed?" And I say, "Of course I do." You know, now you're asking me like I think that somebody's going to wave a magic wand over them and the guy in the ditch is going to be a CEO tomorrow. That's not going to happen. But the
right.
guy in the ditch can become a CEO because the guy in the ditch can change. It takes a little time and it takes effort, but the guy in the ditch can do whatever he wants to do.
Hmm. But you can take you can take that opportunity for change in that time and you can bring it down. It can be real long or it can be less long by
Right.
adopting some life skills, some, you know,
Yeah.
these. I mean, it doesn't have to be that long if you just shift and begin to think about what are the
Yep.
ways I can make better decisions. And every, you know,
I,
this is one of the great things. Everything matters, right?
yep. I call it you know, I call it determining what grade sandpaper you want to use on your life
Yeah.
because everybody comes to the table with rough edges and we want to be this beautiful fashioned thing that everybody accepts, that everybody likes. Okay, well, that's going to take some sanding. Okay,
Hmm.
so do you want to use light sandpaper? That wouldn't hurt as much. Okay, just, you know, just a little bit every now and then, just a little light rubbing. It might take you years, or do you want to use the heavy stuff, the heavy grit sandpaper? I mean, it'll take the skin right off of you.
Hmm.
And so you got to decide, how fast do you want to change? Everybody has to change. How
Yeah.
fast do you want to do it?
Yeah. And one of the things that I know we got to wrap it up, but one of the things that I love so much about what you talk about is you master the basics. I mean, you don't tell everybody pie in the sky trendy things. You talk about, everything matters. Every decision, every minute you commit, everything has to be on purpose, so to speak. And once you begin to be intentional in everything, that's heavy sandpaper, but it doesn't hurt near as bad. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And to know where you're going is half the journey.
Yeah. And to know that it's progress, not perfection. You can't leap
Right.
there. You have to get there a little bit every day. So, all right. One of the things you do is you create a lot of fun everywhere you go. And this is wonderful because I think that's important. Creating healthy environments is important. So, people can, of course, read your book, but you have Wisdom Harbor, you have the Blue Plate Special. How can people pay attention to all the things you're doing? And it's andyandrews.com, right?
Yeah, the best way is just go to andyandrews.com and put your email address
Yep.
in to that for the VIP email list, and we won't do anything with your email,
Right.
and we won't bother you, but we will let you know when things are going on, when there's discounts or when there's new things, and we'll let you know when we're going to be somewhere. And so just go to andyandrews.com and put your email address in, and we'll keep up with you.
Well, I'm so excited that we got to talk, and I appreciate you taking the time to join me. And we'll get to share this, and it'll be so much fun because I think the way that you teach the basics and the on purpose and everything matters. It begins to shape a plan pretty quick for someone's
Right.
life to be on purpose. Because I
Right.
like to say, if it's not on purpose, is it an accident?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for being here with us. I really appreciate it. I hope we can do this again. And andyandrews.com. Everybody go watch everything and read all the books because they will really challenge your thinking and change the way that you live your life. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much. And thank Matt Jack for me.
I will.
All right.
Definitely.
All right. Bye bye.